in this ring. It gets corrected, has a process for correction. I think we need to look at all the resources. You can't build a plan if you don't deal with resources, one. And two, we certainly need to incorporate water supply. That water supply plan, it's ridiculous it wasn't put out years ago. And what's happened lately with the wastewater management planning is also absurd. Basically, without looking at the resources, taking a holistic approach, and basically, those are my main problems with the existing strategic plan, is that it hasn't done those things and that you can't build a decent plan without them. I do agree with some of the more specific criteria that are listed, but you have to get a great deal more specific still in order for it to be a comprehensive and useful plan. And finally, land preservation cannot rely strictly on acquisition dollars, whether it's farmland or open space. You have to have a variety of tools, or you're just not going to be able to do it. The SADC strategic plan for agriculture recognizes that clearly, and it has one strategy of being supportive to the ag industry. You've got to do that in a variety of ways throughout the planning. You've got to have many tools.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Julia O'Rourke. Julia O'Rourke, East Jersey Tea Party, Organization. Is it John? I'm sorry. Okay, I see this right here. Sir.
My name is John O'Rourke from Brick Township. I'm here on behalf of my 5 grandchildren, all under the age of 5. A couple of things that I kind of cherry-picked out of the plan, but I think are important that we said. Page 36, paragraph 2 contains the statement, and this is what I'm concerned about, private property rights. Private property owners must face unpredictable and changing conditions as they pursue the highest and best use of their land of the current law. And I'm saying, property owners must, this is the thing that concerns me about one of the things anyway. Also, I noticed that there are 10 garden state values. I'm just wondering, who was who determined what the garden state values were? Was there any kind of survey done? Another thing, if I'm correct, that this plan proposes a governance council with a membership of 36 seats on this council, which includes 13 counties, but there were 21 in this thing. 5 cities, which are most of the big cities are listed: New Brunswick, Jersey City, Patterson, and some non-governmental agencies. I'm just wondering how much do we know about New Jersey future?
Sir,
Plans tomorrow.
I just wanted just so we can have a good conversation. You're referencing a grant for the North Jersey region.
Which is part of this plan, right?
It's not part of this plan. It's a separate grant.
Okay.
Yes, just wanted to make sure we cleared the air and made sure that we had a good conversation today.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify.
Okay. All right. I was concerned if that was the case. I was concerned that local governments were ceding their authority to some of these, what's called different kind of governments. Okay.
Thank you. Francis Rappa.
Thank you. I'm Fran Rappa. I'm the Delaware Bay Regional Manager with New Jersey Conservation Foundation. We're a statewide land trust. We've been around 50 years and we've preserved over 120,000 acres of land around New Jersey. And as a statewide land trust, I want to first commend the State Planning Commission for the state plan language that stresses the importance of the state's preservation programs. However, having said that, the draft state strategic plan needs more emphasis on resource protection measures and environmental health. Open space preservation alone cannot achieve environmental sustainability, or economic sustainability for that matter. We also oppose the elimination of resource-based goals and policy objectives, infrastructure investment guidance, community design standards as they previously existed in the state plan. The 2002 state plan provided clear direction to municipalities and other planning entities on how to plan for and achieve sustainable, cost-efficient, and orderly growth. This plan does not. We also urge the State Planning Commission to restore policy maps. The 2007 draft policy maps and the proposed planning areas more accurately represented environmental constraints and provided greater transparency and predictability to local planners and the development community to help avoid future conflicts. In the end, as a few have pointed out tonight, there will be maps. I mean, there will be priority investment areas of various sorts, and those areas will have to be represented geographically on maps. So to say that you're doing away with the state policy maps is really inconsistent with the direction that the strategic plan is going in the first place. In addition, it's unfair and irresponsible to refer to the landscape project data as flawed. Landscape data is supported by verifiable sightings of rare species and science-based criteria, and this type of misleading language should really not be in this plan. Again, in the current 2002 plan, or I should say, the current 2002 plan is not perfect. Does it warrant throwing it out entirely? Absolutely not. The 2002 plan represents years of consensus building with local stakeholders and countless other organizations. It's a work in progress, however, it was not fully implemented at the state agency level. Interagency coordination was lacking and the plan endorsement process was too complicated. For example, the water quality management planning rules attempted to provide a holistic approach to capacity-based planning by looking at the ability of natural systems to sustain growth, but full implementation was continually stalled. Since the State Planning Act was passed in 1985, nearly 30 years of planning progress under 6 elected administrations have now been wiped out by a strategic vision document that lays out some very respectable principles and objectives, but still does not address the real issues that have allowed the continuation of unabated sprawl, traffic gridlock, loss of vital natural resources and productive farmland, and an inability to reinvigorate our urban centers. With the right leadership, it's not too late to amend this plan to ensure consistency with the State Planning Act and provide a clear roadmap to economic and environmental sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelley Kennedy.
Good evening. To the gentleman's point here about the regional governance structure, where that comes from is the North Jersey Transit Plan of 13 counties, which the state plan here does nothing to stop. This goes to one of my primary problems with this plan, although there are some good things in it. One of the flaws I find is that in the Garden State values, we don't preserve and protect our private property rights. It's very true, without property, there can be no liberty and no prosperity, no affluence for us to build on. If we seek to preserve our farms, then if we can't do what we want with them because our development rights have been seized by conservation easements through some other plan, then how are we going to continue with a prosperous state? The answer is we cannot. Particularly if the tax dollars that are collected around the state are then drawn up and put into concentrated areas for dense urban development. Taking that money out of our communities, it takes it away from our schools, our police, and our fire. So in the name of some undefined term called sustainability, we're making tremendous sacrifices. I too would like to see a few things clarified in this plan, as I heard one other person state. I'd like to see some definitions put in there. What do we mean by growth? What do we mean by sprawl? When do we know that sprawl is sprawl? When do we know what we're talking about, what is sustainable. I know what is not sustainable. I've seen definitions of that. A lot of what we have here would be considered by those definitions to be unsustainable. Is that what we mean? I think that needs to be clarified. Specifically, going to the plan, I'm just looking at the executive summary. I had some questions, and I don't know if you're taking questions because I had to drive a while to get down here, but maybe we can follow up later. What data support the conclusion that the process of planning for and regulating physical development hampers the state's ability to compete? If the state is in a sad state right now, as I heard someone say, maybe it's because there's been too much government intervention. Do we need to plan everything at a state level? If there's one thing that I do like, there are a couple things. One of the things I do like about the plan is that it doesn't try to micromanage everything, which is good from the current plan. But there's a lot of space in there for subsequent abuse by other plans, particularly at the regional level. The appropriate place for planning is where the property ownership lies. I see people here representing various groups. I'm not representing a group. I'm representing a person who actually owns a piece of land. And I don't have a lobbyist who speaks for me. I don't have a lobbyist who stands up and says, oh, but we want this and this, who's paid and sits in the office of somebody and can speak when I'm at work so that I can go back and pay my property taxes, so they can come and be collected up, get shipped off to some other place to build some community because it's supposed to be sustainable. I don't like that. I'd like to see the plan address that issue because I think it is an issue. It's going to increase in importance. Another thing I had a question about is my quality of life is pretty good right now, but when I was reading this, and of course I live in Monmouth County and not everybody has a great place where they call home. I love where I live. I love it. It's beautiful. But I saw here in the plan that it talks about how our quality of life is not high and that we're fighting because we're having a diminishing quality of life. And I just thought that's just not true. So what is this plan actually based on? Everybody I've talked to thinks their quality of life is pretty good. So why are we trying to fight a diminishing quality of life when, frankly, I don't really see it diminishing? What I see diminishing is things like earning power because people are leaving the state in droves. We've talked about planning for growth. The question I have is what growth? Are we growing? We just lost a congressional district. 331,000 people left the state in the last 10 years. $14 billion of wealth. What growth? We're growing? How and where and why? Do we have data behind that? Because I'd like to see it. What data do we have to support the growth that's planned for the next 10 to 15 years? You want to address that now or should we talk about it later?
This is a comment period, so we could have this around later on.
I've asked for data before and I haven't gotten it yet, and I really would like to see that because this has been in my comments. If we are to look at the state as a whole, then we need to look at our governance structures that are already in place. And the governance structures that are already in place include our counties and our municipalities. These are where we, as people, individuals, have power. I don't have a lobbyist that sits in somebody's office and talks all day. All I have is an elected official who can come and speak for me. And that's at the municipal level, that's at my city council, that's at my county freeholders. So when that's taken away from me by a top-down plan at the state level, I don't have a voice anymore. And I feel this plan takes away my voice, and I'd like to see that addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is John Cummins. I'm from Atlantic Highlands. I'm a little bit concerned that we have another layer coming in here. It's nice that they're trying to consolidate, streamline, cut red tape, stuff like that, but I'm a little bit concerned that people are planning what to do with areas when they could be put up for sale, people could make bids on it, people could come in and develop it, people could invest in it, but apparently that's not allowed. We need to do this strange growth that's mandated from afar. I don't even think this comes from the United States, this sustainable development. Was that our idea? Is it sustainable? You know, are we really not sustainable right now? I mean, if I was left alone, I could plant seeds in my yard. You know, but I'm regulated. You know, there are certain things I can't do, and they seem to be making more regulations. I've also noticed that, you know, I pay taxes, but somebody somewhere is deciding what to do with my tax money. And it's not the stuff that I really thought it was going to do. You know, I thought it was going to maybe fix streets. I thought it was maybe going to provide sewers. I thought it was maybe going to provide education. But no, they take our money and they plan to do interesting things with it, like, well, gee, let's take a whole bunch of money and send it over here, and we'll do something with it. Maybe we can get some grants from somebody else, get some more money and put it here. And amazingly, graft and greed tends to show up and go for the money, and we're left with squat or worse. We're left with damage. And you know, it's a recipe for greed when you start poking money at things instead of letting people come and bring money. Let them invest. Let them build. Who wouldn't like to have an engineering center in the middle of Newark or Camden with all this land around that's housing is available, but with the center there, you could actually have money. People would work, people would invest, people would build, and you don't have to tell them what to build, where to build, how to build it. If somebody wants to build in an eco zone, they better be an eco nut, okay? They probably know how to build. Somebody could live in a shack near a creek, you know, as long as they didn't, you know, decide to run an oil pipeline and dump it in, you know, they could live cleanly by learning. But, you know, we're not even allowed to educate ourselves around here. You know, we're told how to educate. It's regulated. Go figure. It's expensive to regulate. It doesn't always have the desired effect. I don't know if anybody's noticed that yet, but you end up spending money trying to figure out what the regulation's going to be, trying to enforce the regulation, and then there's additional costs of collecting fines and things like that when the regulations are violated. How about trying to pay back that HUD grant? Somebody gives you a HUD grant because they want you to build exactly like this. They want you to move these people into that housing that's built for this purpose.
John, we can focus on
Yes.
the state plan.
Okay, enough.
Thank you. Hold those.